Let's look at securing architectures, our next panel discussion on zero trust architectures moving beyond perimeter. In a world where traditional perimeter defenses are no longer sufficient, zero trust has emerged as a strategic approach to secure our digital environments. The traditional approach to cybersecurity relied heavily on the concept of perimeter inside the fortified boundary. Everything was considered trustworthy, while anything beyond it was deemed as untrustworthy. However, the rapidly evolving threat landscape and the rise of remote work has rendered this perimeter-centric model obsolete. Attackers are finding new ways to infiltrate and exploit trusted networks, necessitating a fundamental rethink of our security strategies. With that being said, I would like to invite our panelists to share their expert strategies with us. Let's put our hands together for Kishan Kendre, Head Information Security at Blue Star Limited, Sreeshankar Gurujalam, General Manager Cybersecurity at Siemens Healthineers, Kamal Sharma, Vice President and CISO at ASM Technology. It will be moderated by Smith Gonsalves, Managing Director and Principal Consultant, Cyberspec Secure Private Limited.
Well, good morning, Ahmedabad, here in the happening city of Ahmedabad. And guys, coming up with one of the incredible panel, and this is about zero trust architecture moving beyond perimeter. Well, as the name sounds interesting, the panelists over here are also seasoned and experienced who come from different sectors and domains, sharing their vital decade-old expertise and experience. So it's quite interesting for us to understand the way this technology, that is zero trust, the way it is evolving and what are the challenges and gaps. This panel that we are going to present it to you, we are going to comprehensively discuss about the ways enterprises and corporates today can adopt it. And I also see youngsters over here. So how youngsters can potentially gear up with the set of tools and understandings about this technology to go ahead and communicate with their stakeholders to see how this framework can be adopted. So with that, I would like to introduce the set of distinguished panelists, starting with Mr. Kamal, who comes from the ASM Technologies. He is the person who has been extensively worked on areas of product building, areas of helping enterprises to secure their networks and infrastructures. It's pretty great to have you here. Then we have Sreeshankar, who is the GM for the Siemens Healthcare. And we all have been looking at Siemens, the way it is growing, the way it has been making a significant dominance in the healthcare industry. It's great to have you. Then we have Kishan Kendre, who is the CISO for Blue Star. And Kishan is going to ensure that the panel remains chill because he comes from Blue Star. So with that being said, let me come to Kamal and begin with the first question. So as we are discussing zero trust architecture, or let me put it this way, zero trust technology. So in order to begin, let me ask Kamal a very interesting question. What exactly do you see this zero trust technology, this which is being evolving? We had earlier something called as OT, operational technology, which people now call it IoT. So what is the whole overview of this zero trust and how do you see this technology?
Thank you for having us here, and thank you the ones present here to hear us about the zero trust architectures. Right? There is a lot of confusion in terms of what zero trust is. You just talked about zero trust technology. A lot of people use that as a term. Zero trust solutions, another term used. Zero trust framework, another term used. And people look at zero trust products. So I think there is a need for understanding what actually zero trust is. And unless we understand that, we have a challenge of not moving to the next step. So zero trust is not a technology. It's not a product. It's a framework. It could be a strategy. And it could suddenly be a solution, which primarily revolves around the principle of believing that any device, present in your network infrastructure is potentially compromised, and adversary is present. Now, having said that as a principle, and let me take you back to 70s. Zero trust is not new thing. The first time, the first known breach, what we talk at MIT, it happened in late 60s, early 70s, where in MIT, and one of the user actually, so there were resource allocation that you can use resources only for a particular time. And what this person did is he did found a bug. He put his own settings in it, reconfigured it, that whenever he reaches his time limit, it automatically the counter sets to 0. I think that's the first time a network breach as it was recorded. In 1975, MIT came with the foundation principles of cybersecurity, and there they talked about authenticating, or rather mediating, every transaction. So zero trust actually goes to that times, though the term was coined in sometime in 2010. So it's about basically taking that principle that you need to authenticate every user, you need to authenticate every device, you need to authenticate every network flow. I think that's the base principle, and then rest you can fit whatever technologies you have in place. You need various technologies, various products, and then based on that you can fit into yours, come up with a solution which works to your organization.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. Sreeshankar, would you like to add on this?
I think he's covered extensively on what.
I have an interesting question for you. When it comes to zero trust, so I see a lot amount of people coming up with different set of products on the zero trust architecture. And so I've been looking at different products, and it becomes quite difficult for the CISOs to have a differentiated factors among them. So how do you see to this is my question to you.
Super. Thank you for that question. So, as Kamal said, zero trust is a framework for implementers and for decision makers and for your senior management. It's a strategy. And for someone to sell zero trust, they would have to sell a solution, not a product. Because, you bring a device or a product, bring it home, plug it in, it works. Product. But a firewall cannot be like that. You bring in, unless you configure it the way you need it for your business, it is just a device. It's just a product that's dumped. So you need a solution along with that. And the same goes with zero trust. You cannot make a product and say that this is a zero trust product. A product is not alive till the required solution for the particular domain, for the particular industry, for the particular specific business segment that they're using it. If that is not there, your product is as good as a brick. So you put that brick with the right kind of cement, which is your solution, and present it. So if you are looking at the youngsters and asking this question, then I would say, good, you are focusing on the product, focus more on the solution where it fits in. Else, you'll lose the context.
That's a very interesting perspective about the product industry of the zero trust. So with that, I move to Kishan. And Kishan, I have a very interesting question for you in terms of the zero trust technology and the way its adoption. So what do you see in terms of corporates and enterprises now, since the adoption of zero trust, if you see in US, I'm able to see a lot amount of enterprises are quite actively adopting it. In fact, in UAE for the fact as well. How do you see in India? What is the mindset of this zero trust? Is this the buzzword able to connect with the board? What are your views on this?
Before that, I will always try to give an example so people can relate to that. Why does Ferrari have the brakes? So everybody used to, I have given this example many times. I get an answer. Everybody says about, so they can break it, they can stop it. But I have a different perspective where you can say that, so Ferrari can go faster and faster. So in a business language, Ferrari is your business and the security is the brakes. So the business can run faster and faster. Now, with respect to the zero trust, one as the name suggests, zero trust. Trust everyone, but verify before allowing it. Otherwise, you'll not be able to achieve. And it's a buzzword. Now, industries are open to adopt in India. It totally depends upon the business requirement of your organization. How the business wants to grow further is totally depends upon that. How do you connect with business and how they want to run fast? Or one of the major challenge which I see with respect to the traditional VPNs, where all the traffic will consolidate to a single place and then internally travel to a multiple locations and then coming back, which is a tedious job to manage and everything. With respect to the zero trust, specifically with the small branches, remote locations, having all this setup is not in a practically possible scenarios. So this particular zero trust helps to build that, and you'll be able to achieve your more and more business. And the India means a lot of organizations are following a zero trust model to improve their businesses. You can say that. I'll give a classic example specific to if I need to open up a office in a remote, say a smaller village, say in an Aurangabad in Maharashtra, in Maharashtra, which is a small place. But having everything there, setting up from router, firewall, office, and everything, I can have a single agent install on their machines, connected through a zero trust network to a corporate. That's it. I'll be up and running in a week's time, max to max, even less than 2 days. Only time taken is to build up your network bandwidth, internet bandwidth. Rest, and it's a lesser cost. I don't need to manage it also again. See, one of the major challenge which I see every organization has invested a lot in the technologies, but they are not utilizing them properly. Every organization will have almost 10 to 20 technologies or beyond that also, but they have to utilize. Zero Trust is one of the good framework or a strategy, as Kamal mentioned, which will help us to improve better and better. So this is my perspective, John.
No, you have highlighted the key areas, let me put it, right from the affordability towards the implementation and the challenges that one has to consider. So with that, I move to Kamal. And Kamal, you have been part of various product designing for various enterprises. So your company, so what I wanted to understand is preliminary from the overall implementation side of the zero trust, that what are the different types of areas where the zero trust uh, can act as a solution.
Responsibility to make people aware about it, all of us as a cybersecurity community leaders. What he just talked about, there are some things which are very standard stuff which are available. If you are, let's say if you are using PKI infrastructure in your organization, you would use, normally when you use TLS, it will be one way. You will go to, a client will go to access a server. The server will get verified, but the client never gets verified. If you can implement mutual TLS, which is very simple to do, each of your end device can be authenticated. So at least one pillar of your, you talk about user devices and then the network flow, right? So if you implement mutual TLS, your device actually get authenticated without much of the investment. Microsoft Defender has you can implement a policy where you can enable IPsec authentication. Again, and that's a default thing in your enterprise who are using enterprise version of the Microsoft, right? You can effectively use again to authenticate each of your device using Microsoft Defender. It does give some challenges in terms of you will only have then visibility of the connection, but because it's already encrypted, and the encryption can be all the way up to your AES 256 and so on, you won't know what traffic is flowing. So it does give challenge in terms of monitoring, but at the same time, you are addressing one side of the story. Of course, you're monitoring, then you'll have to take it to the endpoint. So, so we, as a company, we do work with many cybersecurity product companies as their extended teams to develop products. And these are the aspects we consider. So one is each one of them are taking the monitoring to the endpoint. It's no more at the network level. Because if you have to encrypt data end to end, which becomes from your endpoint to your server to your application, then you can't monitor what is happening. And if that one device is compromised and whatever data is being sent, whether it's malicious or not, you can't verify. That has to be done at the endpoint. So overall, again, it will come back to the solution. You can have different ways of implementing it. And depending on what you implement, you will have to pick the right monitoring solution at the endpoint level. I think that would be the key to take it. Yeah.
Well, that gives a broader amplification and understanding of the framework. Thanks, Kamal, for the greater insights. So with that, I come to Sreeshankar. And Sreeshankar, I have a very interesting question for you. Now, this question is particularly from the products which are there on Zero Trust. What would be your opinion for the products, the young startups in the space of Zero Trust? What should be their go-to-market strategy? For a fact that this technology's adoption in India is also new and it's evolving. The people, for them to understand and relate, is also taking some amount of time. So how do you see, and what are your opinions on this?
Okay, that's a very practical question. So, when you buy a off-the-shelf product, I mean, your expectation is that, okay, I do little tinkering here and there and it should work for me. But for a person, let's say a decision maker or a board, I go and say, okay, I need so much money and I'm going to put Zero Trust. Okay, good. Why do you have to do that? You'll explain the benefits. And then, okay, if you put this, will it address everything? Okay, have you covered all the risks? Okay, go ahead. Now, when you're presenting, are you as a practitioner aware of all the risks? If you do not have a comprehensive vision of what is and what is the required mitigation and what is the requirement for the future, if you do not do that technical and business assessment of what is required, you should not even venture into Zero Trust, right? Because you put something, you try to do some add-on, you try to do some tinkering, that's not going to be Zero Trust. And also, it's like I see many companies, I keep talking to many people. So what I realize is someone said, we'll put SD-WAN, we're towards Zero Trust. Great. But when will you be Zero Trust? Maybe after 2 years. Now, what will you do? When you keep doing these things in bits and pieces or not having an overall agreement with your board, you're not one, you're just distributed around, you're opening up many more vulnerabilities. So the key to the equipment manufacturers is that please mix with your people. People who are selling, they're not your customers whom you can just visit once in a while. Mix with them, interact with them, be on their side, do their assessment, help them do their assessment, then suggest a solution based on your product. I think that's the way to go.
Very, very interesting. So as rightly highlight, the people who are selling Zero Trust products should be operating on ground, and they need to spend time with their customers to understand their problems. That is how I can summarize it.
Just to add on to that, financial company is very different from a retail, very different from a
of course
company. So they must be sensitive to that as well while they are getting into the specific businesses.
That's a very interesting viewpoint. So with that, Kishan, I come to you with an interesting question. Since we have discussed about Sreeshankar has tried highlighting some of the areas or the specific challenges. I want to understand from you as well. What are the core challenges that you see in this technology adoption of this? So basically, adoption of the zero trust architecture or products in India.
So before that, I would like to add one more
Sure.
point specifically to that question. What extra or what organization to do to build the zero trust technology? I can say one more thing, like they should discuss to the industry, understand their use cases, what they want to achieve with the zero trust, and what can be achieved with the zero trust. To see, one of the major challenge to each and every organization is the attack surface is now, previously it was only to data center. Now there is no boundaries to the attack surface now, which every organization wanted to again reduce back to a smaller thing. And zero trust is one of the area which is helping us to reduce that. So that is one of the point the organization should considering before in putting any zero trust. Now coming back to the technologies, again, I will emphasize on the use cases which is need to be built by the businesses. One of the major use case which I can say, why do we used to have the VPNs? Because to access the internal application. But one of the challenge with respect to the VPN, as soon as you land into the VPN, after that the whole war is yours. So I used to say that whole area is yours, so you can play anything and everything you to do it. But with the help of the zero trust, you can minimize the or reduce the access to the internal applications only to the required people, and from there you cannot move laterally inside. These are the one of the this is the one of the better uses. And then every organization, as I previously mentioned, every organization is having 10 to 20 technologies. You want to consolidate that also. Now, Sreeshankar has talked about the SD-WAN. Think about why do I need the SD-WAN if I have the zero trust, where I can do all the works which is needed for my internal application. And one of the thing is which I wanted to say, most of the organizations are outsource their operations to the third parties. Now, I don't know that is it the real person who's supposed to work for me is working or someone else is working it. So that's one of the challenge which I am having it. So zero trust will may help me. Only the required application will be managed by that person, and nothing else can be disturbed or what you can say that interpreted by them. And which I don't want to do. And then lot of developers gets a request. I wanted to do everything from the home, but I want to access the internal resources. It's a challenge to give that. I'm open. Now there is a concept of the BOID. How do you allow third-party person to access your applications and download the data? So you can leverage the zero trust technologies. Like I don't want to name any zero trust technologies which are in the current market, but some of them are quite well. So only one of the challenge which I see it with them with respect to the operational technology solutions, which I will come back later, maybe once we discuss on the OT part. So that's one of the challenge because, or I can just explain it now itself. See, for a manufacturing industries, the support for these OT machines is from a remote locations, and they do not stay in the same country. They are from some other locations, other countries. But I don't know what he does when we provide a VPN to him. I don't know what he is doing it with that. Is he doing a good work or not? I don't know about that. I want it to be secure on my infrastructure. So zero trust will again help in that area to give the access, but I'll be able to monitor it. I will be able to, and I'm sure on that, or maybe we can have a debate on that. The people who supports on this OT technology, they use the older laptops. They will not have any AV installed on their machine or EDR installed on them. They get infected because of it. That's the reality of the market. So this zero trust will help you into that. Only give application access to the application.
Very rightly pointed. You need to continuously go with the latest adoptions and have to be prepared.
It's true in IT world, but in OT world, the lifespan of a system is 1 to 5 years. But in OT, is 1 to 15 years at least. Or it can go beyond, yeah, true, as rightly mentioned. Because, see, underlying operating system or a hardware upgrading is not an issue. But the associated application, it costs the hardware or the application cost in 1 lakh rupees. I'm just taking an example. The associated application, it might cost you a crore. The company will not be ready to do that.
Ultimately, it comes on the business. So with that, I have one more interesting question. Now, I see a lot amount of auditors, pen testers, and compliance people in the audience. So this question, Kamal, I want to ask you a very interesting question, and that is, now this is from a CISO point of view, that often answer to all the questions of the auditor is zero trust. What is the way your network is being defined? So we say we have a zero trust based architecture deployed in organization. And for auditors, since zero trust in itself talks about verification, validation, it becomes a one-liner statement that they are mature. But what really does a auditor has to do to ensure that the framework is actually implemented right? Or how can he validate the claims that are made by that enterprise?
Okay, first I'll add to what they talked
Sure.
about. See, we need to, for the startups who are trying to sell products in the name of zero trust, as I said, it's not a product. You might fit into a solution. You might have a full solution if you are that big and all areas. But I think one important thing would be to have the right services partner with you. If customer would appreciate it only if overall as a solution it has worked for them. So in rush of selling the product, don't go for whoever, in this market there are 20 guys, I'll partner with 20 and at least 5 of them will go and sell my product. It will not survive in the longer term. It's not an iPhone, which is an independent device. You don't need day-to-day service on it. This is something integrating with multiple products around in an organization. And if you don't have good services partner, ultimately credibility, you will also lose credit. Coming back to the auditors, and with due respect to the auditors present here or outside, we have a challenge that the majority of the auditing community, auditors as such, don't come from technology background. Majority of them come from financial background, from banking and so on. They are great auditors logically to reach to the conclusion that these are the areas where you have issues. But if you don't have technology background, it would always be difficult to deal with the guys who are handling technology. They will take you around in circles. So forget about zero trust. Auditor needs to build the basic technology skills. Today, if you go, you have an ISO 27000 audit for the company. Your 60-70% of the auditing questions will only revolve around HR and admin, because that is what auditors understand. Unfortunately or fortunately, that's what it is. And we as CISOs, we prepare for those areas than actually technology to face those audits. So forget about zero trust. As I said, we need to build technology understanding with the auditing community. It's changing, I'm sure. A lot of new generation auditors who are coming in are actually coming in from technology background. And I think we are on that path to get there soon.
That's a very wider perspective. With that, I come to Sreeshankar, and I have a very interesting question for you. And this question is basically what I see with lot amount of enterprises is they invest in product, which is pretty good. And when you are investing in various products, zero trust being one of the key areas, how do you see that when these technologies are going to be deployed on-prem or in the organization, which the organization is betting on basically to rely in terms of reliability of preventing breach, preventing ransomware attacks and all, then I see a lot amount of pen testers over here and red teamers. Do you see that should organization also consider testing different solutions and stacks that are already deployed on their infrastructures for vulnerabilities and for from a dimension of an hacker's point of view to see when an attack happens, it's not a single line of failure. It is multiple lines of failure. And zero trust exactly talks about validate, verify. But if this technology can be bypassed with having some command and control or the sophisticated APT attacks. So, do you see that sense of realization in corporates to not just invest in products of zero trust, but also have the due diligence and verification done? So, what's your take on that?
Yes, there is a lot of trust on zero trust, which is not good. Because you have zero trust, okay, good. Who can validate, who can authenticate that it has been a comprehensive way of implementing? Maybe you have not covered some aspect, maybe you have left certain layers open, maybe you have not implemented with a long-term in view, and change is a very, very required element in everyday operations, and changes keep happening. Has that been in compliance with zero trust? When you do not look at these aspects, I just mentioned one or two, there may be many more, there will be. And this is where a constant evaluation will have to happen. And that is where our pen testers, that is where our evaluators, that's where our tactical IT auditors will have to jump in. So what's the principle? Well, what's your crown jewel? What's the principles of protecting it? Test that. And if you constantly keep doing that, that should be the guiding principle for your red teams, and they will be good.
Ultimately, validate even zero trust.
Don't trust even zero trust. That's the thing.
That's a very amazing view, let me put it this way. So with that, Kishan, I come to you with a very interesting question. And now this question is about managing passwords. Okay. So what I see is that the biggest challenge that I see with CISOs or CIOs or enterprises is that we are surrounded with passwords everywhere. So, and these passwords are continuously coming up, recurring. And then what I see is that this technology called as passwordless, which is based on zero trust, which is evolving. When this technology is evolving and it is growing, how is the enterprise adoption towards being passwordless is considered in the Indian market perspectives? And what is your take on that? And what are the things that product companies of passwordless have to consider to basically position their products and push it forward into enterprises?
That's an interesting question and difficult to answer, because every organization will have 10 to 12 applications. Every application will have their different passwords. Challenge is to manage them. See, a complete life cycle of a user management, it's a difficult task. Or previously there is identity and access management of the solutions. But to deploy them, the cost, it's not cost effective. The cost is very high. The second part is with respect to completing the integration with the different applications and then manage it. And to manage this, that's a difficult task. Now, every CISO will be very happy if I don't need to manage a password of any application, or a passwordless will be a very good option for that. Now, there are in the organization, there are very old people who doesn't remember the password even for 45 days when they need to change that. So passwordless will help it. The adoption to the Indian market is less compared to the other countries where you can say that. Specifically towards the IT industry, that...
Do you also think that it is heavily dependent because the CISO pushes the product, but it is the IT team and the network team or the development team which they have to bet on the implementation probably, and that's where the delay or the synchronization gap is in terms of implementation, because as rightly mentioned by you and all the panelists, that in order to deploy these products, people have to configure it rightly, and then it should be subject matter experts.
Correct. That's one of the... See, even if they help you out to deploy these solutions, but how do you work with the application teams, internal applications, which only if there is a legacy application, you'll not be able to do the passwordless with them. So you have to think, see, now traditional ways are gone in cybersecurity. You have to think out of box, or you have to bring the innovative ways. Passwordless is one of the one of the area where you can say that's innovative way. Zero trust is again one of the innovative ways. Traditional ways are gone now. That's why and the passwordless deployment or the adoption will increase going forward.
So with that, we come up with my last round of questions to the panelists. We'll have to be a bit quicker on this, considering the time's limitation. So a final rapid fire question that I would have is, how do you see the transformation of zero trust framework or architecture coming into Indian market with this things like the data protection bill and all, which has come up in picture, which has made the organizations reconsider their cyber security investments? So in terms of that, what is the what is the timeline you're looking at? Will it be in the next year or in the next 2 to 3 years? What is it?
I think we have a long way to go.
We'll need
yes.
years if possible. Any particular years from here? So that's a rapid fire question for analysts.
Okay, quickly.
Yep.
How many? Many of you are from the larger companies, but my experience is today the smaller companies do not even have Active Directory. Where are we talking about zero trust, right? We need to find ways to have cost-effective solutions. The smaller companies, even startups we work with, they are not ready to invest so much of money because till you get breach, security is not the priority. So I think it's if you really go to zero trust, I think we are still 3 to 5 years away for the mass rollout stuff. It will happen in the larger companies, but I think we have still a long way to.
Sreeshankar, what's your take? And then I want to ask
First
you
1 year,
Yeah.
if you focus on security per rupee awareness, next 2 to 2.5 years it happens.
Wow. So with that, that is about capacity building and about what the community, I see a lot amount of young generation over here, the pen testers, the cybersecurity enthusiastic who want to be the next level of leaders. And for them, zero trust becomes one of the bridge to go forward into the enterprises and connect. So what is it that they need to do in order to bridge that gap?
Learn the traditional networks first. Don't learn zero trust. Learn the traditional one, then move on. I think yesterday we were having a discussion. Learn the traditional network, move on to zero trust only after that.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting view. One final question to Mr. Kishan, and that is about how do you see the way zero trust is evolving? It would impact the shadow IT systems or the vendors.
The consolidation of the technologies will happen. So they will be forced to collaborate more with each other, which I will say. Yeah, sure. But now that's the need of our and many OEMs are ready and they are forced to collaborate with each other. They are already doing that. The XDR kind of a technology, the framework which came, where many organizations in zero trust also, everything cannot be achieved by a single solution. It can be achieved by a multiple solution. Over the period of 3 to 5 years, which I believe small things will happen immediately with respect to the data privacy bill. The consent management and everything can be done. They have to do it within the next 2 months' time. Otherwise, the fine will start. I believe within next 1 month, it will be applicable to everyone. So the time is not there.
That's a bold statement.
That's the reality actually.
Just want to add what Sri said. We were discussing this thing, and to my young friends who are getting into cybersecurity, and you're talking about know about zero trust at high level, okay? But nobody is going to hire a fresher to do a zero trust architecture. You will be hired to do pen testing. You will be hired to do SOC monitoring, analysis, and so on. You will probably be hired for some GRC works. I still believe to do GRC, you need a lot more experience. You need to understand business. So focus on absolutely basics. Learn the networks, learn operating systems, how they operate, how they can be breached. And that's how you will become the best security professional. and then you can go to our zero trust or DLPs and the rest of the world.
Wow. So you mean to say be a domain expert and add a flavor of zero trust on top of that? We'll have to open up questions for the audience with that. But final conclusion remark.
Only one liner.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The service industry again. There is a resource issues are there. When you talk about the zero trust, how do you manage them? That's one of the challenge which you have to see it. It's not only you deployed it. That doesn't mean that you achieve
Challenge you have got InfoSec got hire over here, so you can definitely hire resources from InfoSec hire over here. That's one of the sponsors over here.
True. And one more means the management continues. It's not like that's a one-time deployment. The operation also needs to be moved on. That's one of the area people can look into that.
So with that, we come to our end of the round of questions that I was able to put to panelists. I must thank them the way they were able to provide their varieties of views from their expertises and different sectors that they come in. It's really great to see different insights that we discuss. In order to summarize it, let me just give you a wide clarity. We started from the use of what exactly zero trust is, how it can be implemented, to the strategic challenges that enterprises faces, right from the budgets towards the practical areas that vendors has to consolidate in order to ensure that how the technology can be implemented, its challenges. And second most important thing that we discussed was about, from the auditor's perspective, that what an auditor has to learn and improve. It's not only focusing on the compliance or the probably the generalized English, but also getting their practical hands dirty to ensure that they are able to get the relevant questions. So with all that amazing, insightful, incredible insight from the panelists, I would like to thank them for giving their views. I'd like to thank amazing crowd who is over here. It's always great to be in Ahmedabad and get that curious crowd asking questions. So with that, we are open for questions. We'll be happy to answer your questions. The panelists would be quite interested and keen on answering some of the challenges and pointers that you have. Even any opinions would be fine. Sure. So we can, we are available over here. You can reach out to us and we can definitely answer your questions. So with that, I would like to thank Besides Ahmedabad for inviting us, giving an amazing amount of hospitality, means a lot. Conferences like this are acting as a great pillars for the community, industry, academia, and the young generation to collaborate. Thank you so much.